I'm Sean Galuszka, and I'm playing Robert Chiltern.
Corrinne Mica, and I'm playing Lady Chiltern and Lady Basildon.
I'm Brendan Kane, and I'll be playing Mr. Cheveley.
Noah Wagner, and I'll be playing Lord Goring.
I'm Lisa Salas, I'll be playing Lady CHEVERSHAM.
I'm August Sorenson, and I'll be playing Martin Chiltern.
I'm Richard Martinez, and I'll be playing Lord MARKBY.
I'm Alison Boole, and I will be playing Mrs. Marchmont and the Countess de NANJAC.
My name is Ryan Holihan, and I'll be playing Mason. An Ideal Husband, Act 1, adapted by Ryan Holihan from Oscar Wilde's original script. Time, 1895. Place, London, Act 1, Scene 1. The Octagon Room at Sir Robert Chiltern's house at Grosvenor Square. The room is brilliantly lighted and full of guests. At the top of the staircase stands Lady Chiltern, a woman of grave Greek beauty, about 27 years of age. She receives the guests as they come up. Miss Marchmont and Lady Basildon, two very pretty women, are seated together on a sofa. They are types of exquisite fragility. Their affectation of manner has a delicate charm. Watteau would have loved to paint them.
Going on to the Hartlocks tonight, Margaret?
I suppose so. Are you?
Yes, horribly tedious parties they give, don't they?
Horribly tedious. Never know why I go. Never know why I go anywhere.
I come here to be educated.
Ah, I hate being educated.
So do I. It puts one almost on a level with commercial classes, doesn't it? But dear Gertrude Chiltern is always telling me that I should have some serious purpose in life, so I come here to try to find one.
I don't see anybody here tonight whom I could possibly call a serious purpose. The man who took me into dinner talked to me about his wife the whole time.
Oh, how very trivial of him.
Terribly trivial. What did your man talk about?
Oh, about myself.
And were you interested?
Not in the smallest degree.
What martyrs we are, dear Margaret.
Oh, and how well it becomes us, Olivia.
Lady Caversham.
Good evening, Mr. Chiltern. Has my good-for-nothing son been here?
I don't think Lord Goring has arrived yet. Why do you call Lord Goring good for nothing?
Because he leads such an idle life.
How can you say such a thing? Why, he rides in the Row at 10 o'clock in the morning, goes to the opera 3 times a week, changes his clothes at least 5 times a day, and dines out every night of the season. You don't call that leading an idle life, do you?
You are a very charming young man.
How sweet of you to say that, Lady Caversham. Do come to us more often. You know we are always at home on Wednesdays.
Never go anywhere now. Sick of London society. I shouldn't mind being introduced to my own milliner. She's always on the right side of things, but strongly object to dining with society.
Of London society, I think it has immensely improved. It is entirely composed now of beautiful idiots and brilliant lunatics. Just what society should be.
Which is Goring? Beautiful idiot or the other thing?
I have been obliged, for the present, to put Lord Goring into a class quite by himself. But he is developing charmingly.
Lord MARKBY and Mr. Cheveley.
Good evening, dear Gertrude. So kind of you to let me bring my friend, Mr. Cheveley. Two such charming people should know each other.
I think Mr. Cheveley and I have met before.
But have we really met before, Lady Chiltern? I can't remember where. I've been out of England for so long.
We were at school together, Mr. Cheveley.
Indeed. I've forgotten all about my school days. I have a vague impression that they were most detestable.
I'm not surprised.
Do you know, I'm quite looking forward to meeting your clever husband, Lady Chiltern. Since he has been at the Foreign Office, he has been so much talked of in Vienna. They actually succeed in spelling his name right in the newspapers. That in itself is fame on the continent.
I hardly think there will be much in common between you and my husband, Mr. Chieveley.
Ah, Monsieur Chieveley, quelle surprise! I have not seen you since Berlin.
Not since Berlin, Countess. 5 years ago.
And you are younger and more handsome than ever. How do you manage it?
By making it a rule only to talk to perfectly charming people like yourself.
You flatter me. You butter me up, as they say here.
Do they say that here? How dreadful of them.
Yes, they have a wonderful language. It should be more widely known.
Good evening, Lord Markby. I hope you have brought Lady Markby with you.
Sir Robert, I have brought a much more charming person than Lady Markby. Her mood becomes quite unbearable around political society. Now that the House of Commons is trying to become useful, she feels it does a great deal of harm.
I hope not, Lord Markby. At any rate, we do our best to waste the public's time, don't we? But who is this charming person you have been kind enough to bring to us?
His name is Mr. Chieveley, one of the Dorshire Chieveleys, I suppose, but I don't really know. Families are so mixed nowadays. Indeed, as a rule, everybody turns out to be somebody else.
Mr. Chieveley. I seem to know the name.
He has just arrived from Vienna.
Ah, yes, I think I know whom you mean.
Oh, he goes everywhere there and has such pleasant scandals about all his friends. I really must go to Vienna next winter. I hope there is a good chef at the embassy.
Well, if there is not, the ambassador will certainly have to be recalled. Pray, point out Lord Chieveley to me. I should like to see him.
Let me introduce you. Mr. Chieveley, my dear friend, Sir Robert Chiltern is dying to know you.
Everyone is dying to know the brilliant Mr. Chieveley. Our attachés at Vienna write to us about nothing else.
Thank you, Sir Robert. An acquaintance that begins with a compliment is sure to develop into a real friendship. It starts in the right manner. And I find that I know Lady Chiltern already.
Really?
Yes. She has just reminded me that we were at school together. I remember it perfectly now. She always got the good conduct prize. I have a distinct recollection of Lady Chiltern always getting the good conduct prize.
Well, and what prizes did you get, Lord Chieveley?
My prizes came a little later on in life. I don't think any of them were for good conduct. I forget.
I am sure they were for something charming.
I don't know that men are always rewarded for being charming. If they are too charming, I think they're usually punished for it. Certainly more women grow old nowadays through the faithfulness of their admirers than do the men. At least, that is the only way I can account for the terribly haggard look of most of your pretty women in London.
What an appalling philosophy that sounds. Well, to attempt to classify you, Lord Chieveley, would be an impertinence. But may I ask, at heart, are you an optimist or a pessimist? There seems to be the only two fashionable religions left to us nowadays.
Oh, I am neither. Optimism begins in a broad grin, and pessimism ends with blue spectacles. Besides, they are both of them merely poses.
You prefer to be neutral? Oh, natural?
Sometimes. But it is such a very difficult pose to keep up. Having a beard is hard work, don't you think?
Oh, well, what would those modern psychological novelists of whom we hear so much say to such a theory as that?
The strength of women comes from the fact that psychology cannot explain them. Women can merely be adored. Only men can be analyzed.
Do you think science cannot grapple with the problem of women?
Science can never grapple with the irrational.
And men represent the rational?
Well-dressed men do.
I fear I could hardly agree with you there. But do sit down and now tell me, what makes you leave your brilliant Vienna for our gloomy London? Or perhaps the question is indiscreet.
Questions are never indiscreet. Answers sometimes are.
Well, at any rate, may I know if it is politics or pleasure?
Pleasure is politics. You see, nowadays, it is not fashionable to flirt till one is 40. Or to be romantic till one is 45. So we who are under 30 have nothing open to us but politics or philanthropy. And philanthropy seems to me to have become simply the refuge of people who wish to annoy their fellow creatures. I prefer politics. I think it is more handsome.
Political life is a noble career.
Sometimes. And sometimes it is a clever game, Sir Robert. And sometimes it's a great nuisance.
Well, which do you find it?
A combination of all three.
But you have not told me yet what makes you honor London so suddenly. Our season is almost over.
Oh, I don't care about the London season. It is too matrimonial. People are either hunting for husbands or hiding from them. I wanted to meet you. I wanted immensely to meet you and to ask you to do something for me.
I hope it is not a little thing, Lord Cheveley. I find that little things are so very difficult to do.
No, I don't think it is quite a little thing.
I'm so glad. Do tell me what it is.
Later on. And now may I walk through your beautiful house? I hear your pictures are charming. Poor Baron Arnheim, you remember the Baron, used to tell me you had some wonderful chords.
Did you know Baron Arnheim well?
Intimately. Did you?
At one time.
Generous man, wasn't he?
He was very remarkable in many ways.
I often think it's such a pity he never wrote his memoirs. They'd have been most interesting.
Yes, he knew men and cities well, like the old Greek.
Without the dreadful disadvantage of having a Penelope waiting at home for him.
Lord Goring.
Oh, good evening, my dear Arthur. Mr. Cheveley, allow me to introduce to you Lord Goring, the idlest man in London.
I have met the Lord Goring before.
I did not think you would remember me, Mr. Cheveley.
My memory is under admirable control. And are you still a bachelor?
I believe so.
How very brave.
Oh, I am not at all brave. I'm not old enough. I leave bravery to my seniors.
Lord Goring is the result of Boodle's club, Mr. Cheveley.
Ah, he reflects every credit on the institution.
May I ask, are you staying in London long?
That depends partly on the weather, partly on the cooking, and partly on Sir Robert.
Well, you're not going to plunge us into a European war, I hope.
There is no danger at present.
You are very late.
Have you missed me?
Awfully.
Then I am sorry I did not stay away longer. I like being missed.
How very selfish of you.
Oh, I am very selfish.
Always telling me of your bad qualities, Lord Goring.
I've only told you half of them as yet, Mr. Chiltern.
The other's very bad.
Quite dreadful. When I think of them at night, I go to sleep at once.
I delight in your bad qualities. I wouldn't have you part with one of them.
Oh, how very nice of you. But then you are always nice. By the way, I want to ask you a question. Who brought Mr. Cheveley here? That man with the heliotrope cravat, who was just gone out of the room with your brother.
I think Lord MARKBY brought him. Why do you ask?
Haven't seen him for years, that is all.
What an absurd reason.
Oh, reasons are absurd.
What sort of a man is he?
Oh, a genius in the daytime and a tiger at night.
I dislike him already.
Oh, that shows your admirable good taste.
Ah, the English dandy is the dragon of good taste, is he not? Ah, quite the dragon of good taste.
So the newspaper's always telling us.
I read all your English newspapers. I find them so amusing.
Oh, then, my dear Countess, you must certainly read between the lines.
I should like to, but my professor objects. Would you do me the pleasure of escorting me to the music room, monsieur?
Delighted, Countess. Quite delighted. Aren't you coming to the music room?
Oh, no, not if there's any music going on, Mr. Chiltern.
Music is in German. You would not understand it.
Well, sir, what are you doing here? Wasting your time as usual? You should be in bed, sir. You keep too late hours. I heard of you the other night at Lady Rufford's dancing till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Only 3:45, Mother.
Can't make out how you stand London society. The thing has gone to the dogs. A whole lot of damned nobodies talking about nothing.
Oh, I love talking about nothing, Mother. It's the only thing I know anything about.
You seem to me to be living entirely for pleasure.
Well, what else is there to live for, Mother? Nothing ages like happiness.
You are heartless, son. Very heartless.
Oh, I hope not, Mother. Oh, good evening, Lady Basildon.
Yeah. I had no idea you ever came to political parties.
Oh, I adore political parties. They're the only place left to us where people don't talk politics.
I delight in talking politics. I talk them all day long, but I can't bear listening to them. I don't know how the unfortunate men of the House stand these long debates.
By never listening.
Really?
Oh, of course. You see, it is a very dangerous thing to listen. If one listens, one may be convinced, and a man who allows himself to be convinced by an argument is a thoroughly unreasonable person.
Ah! That accounts for so much in men that I have never understood, and so much in women that their husbands never appreciate in them.
Our husbands never appreciate anything in us. We have to go to others for that.
Yes, always to others, have we not?
And those are the views of the two ladies who are known to have the most admirable husbands in London.
That is exactly what we can't stand. My Reginald is quite hopelessly faultless. He is really unendurably so at times. There is not the smallest element of excitement in knowing him.
Oh, how terrible. Really, the thing should be more widely known.
Basildon is quite as bad. He is as domestic as if he was a bachelor.
Oh, my poor Olivia. We have married perfect husbands, and we are well punished for it.
Oh, I should have thought it was the husbands who were punished.
Oh, dear, no. They are as happy as possible. And as for trusting us, it's tragic how much they trust us.
Perfectly tragic.
Or comic, Lady Basildon?
Certainly not comic, Lord Goring. How unkind of you to suggest such a thing.
I am afraid Lord Goring is in the camp of the enemy, as usual. I saw him talking to that Mr. Cheveley when he came in.
Handsome man, Mr. Cheveley.
You might wait for us to praise other men.
I did wait.
Well, we are not going to praise him. I hear he went to the opera on Monday night and told Tommy Rufford at supper that as far as he could see, London society was entirely made up of dowdies and dandies.
Well, he's quite right, too. The men are all dowdies and the women are all dandies, aren't they?
Oh, do you really think that is what Mr. Cheveley meant?
Of course. And a very sensible remark for Mr. Cheveley to make, too.
Why are you talking about Mr. Cheveley? Everybody is talking about Mr. Cheveley. Lord Goring says... what did you say, Lord Goring, about Mr. Cheveley? Oh, I remember. That he was a genius in the daytime and a tiger at night.
What a horrid combination. So very unnatural.
I like looking at geniuses and listening to beautiful people.
Ah, that is morbid of you, Mrs. Marchmont.
I am so glad to hear you say that, Mr. Marchmont and I have been married for 7 years, and he has never once told me that I was morbid. Most men are so painfully unobservant.
I have always said, dear Margaret, that you are the most morbid person in London.
Oh, but you are always sympathetic, Olivia.
Is it morbid to have a desire for food? I have a great desire for food. Lord Goring, will you join me for some supper?
With pleasure. Mr. Chiltern?
How horrid you have been. You have never talked to me the whole evening.
Well, how could I? You went away with the Countess.
You might have followed us. Pursuit would have only been polite. I don't like you at all this evening.
Oh, I like you immensely. But we must keep up appearances, Martin. Hmm?
Well, I wish you'd show it in a more marked way.
Oh, Olivia, I have a curious feeling of absolute faintness. I think I should like some supper very much. I know I should like some supper.
I am positively dying for supper, Margaret.
Shall we?
It seems no one else will be accompanying us. Come, Margaret.
And are you trying to go to any of our country houses before you leave England, Mr. Cheveley?
Oh, no. I can't stand your English house parties. In England, people actually try to be brilliant at breakfast. They're so dreadful of them. Only dull people are brilliant at breakfast. And the family skeleton is always reading family prayers. My stay in England really depends on you, Sir Robert.
Seriously?
Quite seriously. I want to talk to you about a great political and financial scheme. About this Argentine Canal Company, in fact.
Oh, what a tedious practical subject for you to talk about, Mr. Cheveley.
Oh, I like tedious practical subjects. What I don't like are tedious practical people. There is a wide difference. Besides, you are interested, I know, in international canal schemes. You were Lord Radley's secretary, weren't you, when the government bought the Suez Canal shares?
Yes, but the Suez Canal was a very great and splendid undertaking. It gave us our direct route to India. It had imperial value. It was necessary that we should have had control. The Argentine scheme is a commonplace stock exchange swindle.
A speculation, Sir Robert, a brilliant, daring speculation.
Believe me, Mr. Cheveley, it is a swindle. Let us call things by their proper names. It makes matters simpler. We have all the information about it from the Foreign Office. In fact, I sent out a special commission to inquire into the matter privately, and there seems to the report that the works are hardly begun. And as for the money, well, the money already subscribed. No one seems to know what has become of it. The whole thing is a second Panama, and with not a quarter of the chance of success that miserable affair ever had. Oh, I hope you have not invested in it. I'm sure you are far too clever to have done that.
I have invested very largely in it.
Oh, who could have advised you to do such a foolish thing?
Your old friend and mine.
Who?
Baron Arnheim.
Ah, yes. I remember hearing at the time of his death that he had been mixed up in that whole affair.
It was his last romance. His last one. But one. To do him justice.
Yes, yes, but you've not seen my Corrots yet. They are in the music room. Corrots seem to go with music, don't they? May I show them to you?
I'm not in a mood tonight for silver twilights or rose-pink dawns. I want to talk business.
I fear I have no advice to give you, Mr. Cheveley, except to interest yourself in something less dangerous. The success of the canal depends, of course, on the attitude of England, and I am going to lay the report of the commissioners before the House tomorrow night.
That you must not do. In your own interest, Sir Robert, to say nothing of mine, you must not do that.
In my own interests, my dear Mr. Cheveley, what do you mean?
Sir Robert, I will be quite frank with you. I want you to withdraw the report that you had intended to lay before the House, on the ground that you have reasons to believe the commissioners have been prejudiced or misinformed or something. Then I want you to say a few words to the effect that the government is going to reconsider the question, and that you have reason to believe that the canal, if completed, will be of great international value. You know the sort of things ministers say in cases of this kind. A few ordinary platitudes will do. In modern life, nothing produces such an effect as a good platitude. It makes the whole world kin. Will you do that for me?
Mr. Cheveley, well, you cannot be serious in making me such a proposition.
I am quite serious.
Pray allow me to believe that you are not.
Ah, but I am. And if you do what I ask you, I will pay you handsomely.
Pay me?
Yes.
I'm afraid I don't quite understand what you mean.
How very disappointing. I have come all the way from Vienna in order that you should thoroughly understand me.
I fear I don't.
My dear Sir Robert, you are a man of the world, and you have your price, I suppose. Everybody has nowadays. The drawback is that most people are so dreadfully expensive. I know I am. I hope you will be more reasonable in your terms.
If you will allow me, I will call your carriage for you. You have lived so long abroad, Mr. Cheveley, that you seem to be unable to realize that you are talking to an English gentleman.
I realize that I am talking to a man who laid the foundation of his fortune by selling to a stock exchange speculator a cabinet secret.
What do you mean?
I mean that I know the real origin of your wealth and your career, and I've got your letter, too.
What letter?
The letter you wrote to Baron Arnheim, when you were Lord Radley's secretary, telling the Baron to buy the Suez Canal shares. A letter written 3 days before the government announced its own purchase.
It is not true.
You thought that letter had been destroyed. How foolish of you. It is in my possession.
The affair to which you allude was no more than a speculation. The House of Commons had not yet passed the bill. It might have been rejected.
It was a swindle, Sir Robert. Let us call things by their proper names. It makes everything simpler. And now I'm going to sell you that letter. And the price I ask for it is your public support of the Argentine scheme. You made your own fortune out of one canal. You must help me and my friends to make our fortunes out of another.
It is infamous, what you propose. Infamous.
Oh, no, this is the game of life, as we all play it, Sir Robert, sooner or later.
I cannot do what you ask me.
You mean you cannot help doing it? You know you are standing on the edge of a precipice. And it is not for you to make terms, it is for you to accept them. Supposing you refuse...
What then? What then?
My dear Sir Robert, what then? You are ruined. That is all. Remember to what a point your Puritanism in England has brought you. In old days, nobody pretended to be a bit of a better than his neighbours. In fact, to be a bit better than one's neighbour was considered excessively vulgar and middle class. Nowadays, with our modern mania for morality, everyone has to pose as a paragon of purity, incorruptibility, and all the other 7 deadly virtues. And what is the result? You go over like 9 pins, one after the other. Not a year passes in England without somebody disappearing. Scandals used to lend charm, or at least interest to a man. Now they crush him. And yours is a very nasty scandal. You couldn't survive it. If it were known that as a young man, secretary to a great and important minister, you sold a cabinet secret for a large sum of money, and that was the origin of your wealth and career, you would be hounded out of public life. You would disappear completely. And after all, Sir Robert, why should you sacrifice your entire future rather than deal diplomatically with your own enemy? For the moment, I am your enemy, I admit it. And I am much stronger than you are. The big battalions are on my side. You have a splendid position, but it is your splendid position that makes you so vulnerable. You can't defend it, and I am an attack. Of course, I have not talked morality to you. You must admit in fairness that I have spared you that. Years ago, you did a clever, unscrupulous thing. It turned out a great success. You owe it your fortune and position, and now you've got to pay for it. Sooner or later, we all have to pay for what we do. You have to pay now. Before I leave tonight, you have got to promise me to suppress your report and to speak in the House in favor of this scheme.
What you ask is impossible.
You must make it possible. You are going to make it possible. Sir Robert, you know what your English newspapers are like. Suppose that when I leave this house, I drive down to some newspaper office and give them this scandal and the proofs of it. Think of their loathsome joy, of the delight they would have in dragging you down, of the mud and mire they would plunge you, and think of the hypocrite with his greasy smile penning his leading article and arranging the foulness of the public placard.
Stop! You want me to withdraw the report and make a short speech stating that I believe there are possibilities in the scheme?
Those are my terms.
I will give you any sum of money you want.
Even you are not rich enough, Sir Robert, to buy back your past. No man is.
I will not do what you ask me. I will not.
You have to. If you don't...
Wait a moment. What did you propose? You said that you would give me back my letter, didn't you?
Yes, that is agreed. I will be in the gallery tomorrow night at 11:30. If by that time, and you will have had heaps of opportunity, you have made an announcement to the House in terms that I wish, I shall hand you back your letter with the prettiest thanks, and the best, or at any rate the most suitable compliment I can think of. I intend to play quite fairly with you. One should always play fairly when one has the winning cards. The Baron taught me that, amongst other things.
You must let me have time to consider your proposal.
No, you must settle now.
Well, give me the week. 3 days.
Impossible. I've got to telegraph to Vienna tonight.
God, what brought you into my life?
Circumstances.
Don't go. I consent. The report shall be withdrawn. I'll arrange for a question to be put to me on the subject.
Thank you. I knew we should come to an amicable agreement. I understood your nature from the first. I analyzed you, though you did not adore me. And now you can get my carriage for me, Sir Robert. I see the people coming up for supper, and the Englishmen always get romantic after a meal. And that bores me dreadfully.
Well, dear Mr. CHEVELEY, I hope you have enjoyed yourself. Sir Robert is very entertaining, is he not?
Most entertaining. I have enjoyed my talk with him immensely.
He has had a very interesting and brilliant career, and he has married a most admirable wife. Lady Chiltern is a woman of the very highest principles. I am glad to say, I am a little too wise now myself to trouble about setting a good example, but I always admire people who do. And Lady Chiltern has a very ennobling effect on life, though her dinner parties are rather dull sometimes. But one can't have everything, can one? And now I must go, dear. Shall I call for you tomorrow?
Thanks.
We might drive in the park at 5. Everything looks so fresh in the park now.
Ah, except the people.
Perhaps the people are a little jaded. I have often observed that the season, as it goes on, produces a kind of softening of the brain. However, I think anything is better than high intellectual pressure. That is the most unbecoming thing there is. It makes the noses of young girls so particularly large. And there is nothing so difficult to marry as a large nose. Men don't like them. Good night, dear. Good night, Gertrude.
What a charming house you have, Lady Chiltern. I have spent a delightful evening. It has been so interesting getting to know your husband.
Why did you wish to meet my husband, Mr. Cheveley?
Oh, I will tell you. I wanted to interest him in this Argentine canal scheme, of which I dare say you have heard. And I found him most susceptible to reason, I mean, a rare thing in any man. I converted him in 10 minutes. He's going to make a speech in the House tomorrow night in favor of the idea. You must go to the ladies' gallery and hear him. It will be a great occasion.
There must be some mistake. That scheme could never have my husband's support.
Oh, I assure you, it's all settled. I don't regret my tedious journey from Vienna now. It has been a great success. But of course, for the next 24 hours, the whole thing is a dead secret.
Secret? Between who?
Between your husband and myself.
Your carriage is here, Mr. Cheveley.
Thanks. Good evening, Lady Chiltern. Good night, Lord Goring. I am at Claridge's. Don't you think you might leave a card?
If you wish it, Mr. Cheveley.
Oh, don't be so solemn about it. Or I shall be obliged to leave a card on you. In England, I suppose I would be hardly considered en anglais. Abroad, we are more civilized. Will you see me down, Sir Robert? Now that we both have the same interests at heart, we shall be great friends, I hope.
What a horrid man.
You should go to bed, Martin.
Goring?
My mother told me to go to bed an hour ago. I don't see why I shouldn't give you the same advice. I always pass on good advice. It's the only thing to do with it. It's never of any use to oneself.
But Goring, you are always ordering me out of the room. I think it most courageous of you, especially as I am not going to bed for hours. You can come and sit down if you like, and talk about anything in the world, except the Royal Academy, Mr. Cheveley, or novels in Scotch dialect. They are not improving subjects. What is this? Someone has dropped a diamond cufflink. Quite beautiful, isn't it? I wish it was mine. But Robert won't let me wear anything so feminine, and I am thoroughly sick of black. It makes one look so plain, so good and so intellectual. I wonder whom the cufflink belongs to.
I wonder who dropped it.
It is beautiful.
It is a handsome cufflink.
What are you doing?
Martin, I'm going to make a rather strange request to you.
Oh, pray do. I've been waiting for it all evening.
Don't mention it to anybody that I've taken charge of this cufflink. Should anyone write and claim it, let me know at once.
That is a strange request.
Well, you see, I gave this cufflink with its match to somebody once, years ago.
You did?
Yes.
Then I shall certainly bid you good night. Good night, Gertrude.
Good night, Martin. You saw whom Lord Markby brought here tonight.
Yes. It was an unpleasant surprise. What did he come here for?
Apparently to try and lure Robert to uphold some fraudulent scheme in which he is interested. The Argentine Canal, in fact.
Oh, he has mistaken his man, hasn't he?
He is incapable of understanding an upright nature like my husband's.
Yes. I should fancy he came to grief if he tried to get Robert into his toils. 'Tis extraordinary what an astounding mistake clever men make.
I don't call men of his kind clever. I call them stupid.
Same thing often. Good night, Lady Chiltern.
Good night.
Oh, well, my dear Arthur, you're not going. Do stop a little.
Oh, afraid I can't, thanks. I have promised to look in at the Hartlocks. I believe they've got a mauve Hungarian band that plays mauve Hungarian music. See you soon. Goodbye.
How beautiful you look tonight, Gertrude.
Robert, it is not true, is it? You are not going to lend your support to this Argentine speculation. You couldn't.
Who told you I intended to do so?
That man who has just gone out, Mr. CHEVELEY. He seemed to taunt me with it. Robert, I know this man. You don't. We were at school together. He was untruthful, dishonest, an evil influence on everyone whose trust or friendship he could win. I despised him. He stole things. He was a thief. He was sent away for being a thief. Why do you let him influence you?
Gertrude, what you tell me may be true, but it happened many years ago. It is best forgotten. Mr. CHEVELEY may have changed since then. No one should be entirely judged by their past.
One's past is what one is. It is the only way by which people should be judged.
That is a hard saying, Gertrude.
It is a true saying, Robert. And what did he mean by boasting that he had got you to lend your support, your name, to a thing I have heard you describe as the most dishonest and fraudulent scheme that ever has been in political life?
I was mistaken in the view I took. We all may make mistakes.
But you told me yesterday that you had received the report from the commission and that it entirely condemned the whole thing.
And now I have reasons to believe that the commission's was prejudiced, or at any rate misinformed. Besides, Gertrude, public and private life are different things. They have different laws and move on different lines.
They should both represent man at his highest. I see no difference between them.
In the present case, on a matter of practical politics, I have changed my mind. That is all.
All?
Yes!
Robert! Oh, it is horrible that I should have to ask you this question. Robert, are you telling me the whole truth?
Why do you ask me such a question?
Why do you not answer it?
Gertrude, truth is a very complex thing, and politics is a very complex business. There are wheels within wheels, and one may be under certain obligations to people that one must pay sooner or later. In political life, one has to compromise. Everyone does.
Compromise? Robert, why do you talk so differently tonight from the way I have always heard you talk? Why are you changed?
I'm not changed, but circumstances alter things.
Circumstances should never alter principles.
But if I told you...
What?
That it was necessary. Vitally necessary.
It can never be necessary to do what is not honorable. Or, if it be necessary, then what is it that I have loved? But it is not, Robert. Tell me it is not. Why should it be? What gain would you get? Money? We have no need for that. And money that comes from a tainted source is a degradation. Power, but power is nothing in itself. It is power to do good that is fine. That and that only. What is it then, Robert? Tell me why you are going to do this dishonorable thing.
Gertrude, you have no right to use that word. I told you it was a question of rational compromise. It is no more than that.
Robert, that is all very well for other men, for men who treat life simply as a sordid speculation. But not for you, Robert. Not for you. You are different. All your life you've stood apart from others. You have never let the world assoil you. To the world, as to myself, you have always been an ideal, always. Oh, be that ideal still. That great inheritance throw not away. That tower of ivory do not destroy. Robert, men can love what is beneath them. Things unworthy, stained, dishonored. We women worship what we love. And when we lose our worship, we lose everything. Don't kill my love for you. Don't kill that.
Gertrude.
I know that there are men with horrible secrets in their lives. Men who have done some shameful thing and who in some critical moment have to pay for it by doing some other act of shame. Oh, don't tell me you are such as they are. Robert, is there in your life any secret dishonor or disgrace? Tell me. Tell me at once that...
That's what?
That our lives may drift apart.
Drift apart?
That they may be entirely separate. It would be better for us both.
Gertrude, there is nothing in my past life that you might not know.
I was sure of it, Robert. I was sure of it. But why did you say those dreadful things? Things so unlike your real self. Don't let us ever talk about the subject again. You will write, won't you, to Mr. Cheveley and tell him that you cannot support this scandalous scheme of his. If you have given him any promise, you must take it back. That is all.
Well, must I write and tell him that?
Surely, Robert. What else is there to do?
I might see him personally. That would be better.
You must never see him again, Robert. He is not a man you should ever speak to. He is not worthy to talk to a man like you. No, you must write him at once, now, this moment, and let your letter show him that your decision is quite irrevocable.
Right, this moment?
Yes.
But it's so late. It's close on 12.
That makes no matter. He must know at once that he has made a mistake in you, and that you are not a man to do anything base or underhand or dishonorable. Write here, Robert. Write that you decline to support this scheme of his, as you hold it to be a dishonest scheme. Yes. Write the word dishonest. He knows what that word means. That'll do. And now the envelope. Have this letter sent at once to Claridge's Hotel? There is
Yes, my lady. Yes, my lady.
Robert, love gives one an instinct to things. I feel tonight that I have saved you from something that might have been a danger to you, from something that might have made men honor you less than they do. I don't think you realize sufficiently, Robert, that you have brought into the political life of our time a nobler atmosphere, a finer attitude towards life, a freer air of purer aims and higher ideals. I know it, and for that I love you.
Oh. Love me always, Gertrude. Love me always.
I will love you always, because you will always be worthy of love. We needs must love the highest when we see it.
All the guests have gone, sir.
I don't want to go to bed, Mason. I want to stay here. Put out the light, Mason. Put out the lights.
Yes, sir.